Man, this game may be pretty great and all, but it's just too new and modern. I need something more old, something more antiquated.
Yeah, right, mate.
God, not again. I swear to God, if that there Mr. English does not stop making so much loud, annoying noise during tea time, I'm gonna have a serious conversation about him moving out. Mr. English, where are you? I bet he's in here. Or not. Where the hell did you go, man? Huh. Oh, man. I bet he's back at the bathroom trying to make another damn sign for it. Why won't he just let that go? What the hell is that? Oh my god. Wow. That's amazing. Wow. This thing is awesome.
Yeah, man, I agree.
What the hell are you?
Why, I'm just the Germany Ball, that's all, and I see that you found one of my mythical artifacts.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. Actually, I've been, working on like a crime-fighting business type thing, and I've been wondering how I could actually make it work, how I could actually fight crime, and I think such an incredible weapon might actually be the solution.
How so?
Well, I want to dedicate my life to righteousness and justice and honor, but I don't think I can enforce such ideas without some power, some strength, and I think that's what this weapon could give me. Would you be willing to give it to me?
Give it to you? How silly of you. You must know that such a powerful weapon cannot be given away for free, right?
Yeah, I suppose so, but what exactly would you want? Because I just gotta warn you, I can't exactly give you euros or dollars. Not after Mr. English converted all my money into pounds. He said I could use it to fund the NHS instead. I don't know, man. He's really gone off the deep end. He's been getting all of his news off of buses. It's really weird.
Sounds like an idiot. But no, I'm not hoping for any money. I just want you to play through all of the God of War games and beat them to prove that you really are worthy to hold such a weapon.
Really? I love God of War. I'd gladly do that.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah, I definitely need this axe to spread justice. It will definitely come in handy. My first target's for sure gonna be Mr. English, though. He's been wreaking havoc on my life for months!
Really? What else did he do that was so bad?
Well, first, he turned my PS3 cable into a UK one, so I can't exactly use it now. He also privatized the railway.
Well, I thankfully got my whole cable situation sorted out because now I can review the first God of War game for you all today. Released in 2005, this incredibly important gem was beloved by so many to the point that it spawned a massive gaming franchise that has lasted up to this day. That's very impressive, especially since it's a Sony exclusive game. Sony seems to have an old yeller strategy with their franchises. Have fun for a few years and then, well, don't worry guys. Sly Cooper just got moved to a farm upstate. It's gonna be alright. But God of War is an exception to this. They couldn't take it to the farm if they tried. God of War is an enduring, impactful, revered, dare I say, prestigious franchise in the pantheon of gaming, and that's quite clear with the fantastic modern entries, both of which I've reviewed before. However, it all started with this simple little game on the PS2. Released the same year that... What the hell happened in 2005? Oh yeah, Angela Merkel was elected. Isn't that a strange thought, though? God of War remained at the head of a massive, powerful body for longer than Angela Merkel did. I mean, to be fair, Kratos did never have a crippling case of resemblance to the Kazoo Kid, so it was only a matter of time before he overtook her. So what exactly is the deal with the first God of War? Well, it's a very interesting game because in it, you aren't the God of War. You're fighting the God of War. Yes, the title actually refers to the villain of the series, which I think is pretty funny. Similar to how Zelda isn't the protagonist of most Zelda games, the God of War is not the protagonist in the original God of War, or at least not until the very end of the game. In fact, God of War shares a lot of similarities to the early 3D Zelda titles in other ways too, but we'll get to that in due time. First, how does the game look? Well, for a PS2 game from 2005, it's quite impressive. Sure, certain cutscenes are blurrier than a Britpop concert, but when you're actually playing the game, things look very good. I love the reflections and the little details that make certain areas so cinematic. It's quite important to bring this fantastical world to life. For example, in one of the coolest moments of the whole game where you climb into the dead carcass of a slain Hydra, the drops of saliva trickling across the tissue of the inside of its mouth and webs stretched between the slimy folds make it feel so real and visceral. The set pieces are very creative throughout most of the game, which helps it to look visually memorable and distinct. The entire opening, starting in the Aegean Sea, moving into the densely populated Athens, and then going into the Desert of Lost Souls, is truly remarkable because of its variety. However, it doesn't manage to exactly keep up that originally after the fact. Once you get to the Temple of Pandora, things sort of start to feel samey. I don't think it's that bad because this is the main portion of the game, and they do try to make each different segment of it somewhat unique, but it can still feel like a downgrade from the wildly creative first portion of the experience. I really like how they try to give each of the trials more of a deliberate elemental theming, but the temple does get a bit tiring after a while, and it left me wishing for some more segments and crazy set pieces akin to the desert or sea. The pacing of the game in general starts to take a hit here too. As I said, the first third of the game or so is fantastic, exciting, and a total blast. The second third is a little less inventive, but still solid due to constant switching between exploring, puzzles, and combat encounters. But in the final part, things start to become a total and utter drag. Once you finish getting done with all of the trials, you'd think you would finally gain access to Pandora's box and go on to fight Ares, but no, instead you have to traipse through the outside of the temple for around 45 minutes, dealing with some infuriating swarms of enemies, unfair puzzles, and the general feeling of, oh god, when is this finally going to end? This box puzzle in particular is a ridiculous scourge that I always dread. Hilariously though, it's not even the worst part of the game, because after retrieving Pandora's box and pushing it super slowly... Jesus, that's slow as hell. After getting the mythical weapon, Kratos is killed in a pretty shocking twist, and you must ascend out of the underworld itself, Hades. Hades is the most visually interesting and unique part of the whole game, and I do love that about it, but it's an absolutely awful level in terms of gameplay. Not only are the enemies kind of annoying here too, but the climbing up totems with spinning blades on them is simply infuriating. You will fall so many times on these things, mainly because there's not much to do in the way of strategy. It's just trial and error, which is commonplace in a lot of games, sure, but usually not right at the end of the game before the climactic battle that's been built up through the entire thing. And after dealing with a ridiculous amount of frustrating climbing, balancing, and fighting, it's finally over and you face off against the final boss. This is, visually and conceptually speaking, an awesome moment in the game. You grow to a massive scale and take on the God of War in an epic battle with the burning Athens in the background, as small as a rodent. It truly feels climactic and proper for an ending in terms of the idea behind it and the atmosphere which it induces, but it also displays some of this game's more deeply seated issues. Yes, there are some pacing problems and specific levels that aren't all that great, but I'd argue looking at the game's overall quality in terms of how it shifts, it's a success. The problem comes from some of the game's deeper aspects, mainly combat. God of War has some excellent presentation for the time, but its combat is something that should be a little less ephemeral, right? Well, it doesn't exactly reach the heights that I think it could, but it is a pretty great foundation for something better, similar to the 2018 game's combat compared to its sequel. You have two weapons, both of which are satisfying to use. Of course, the Blades of Chaos are more iconic, but the weight and impact of the sword is also incredibly fun, so they definitely gave Kratos a good arsenal, which also extends to the special abilities you unlock. 4 different magic abilities are given to you, all of which are awesome ideas. Raising an army of undead from Hades to fight by your side, summoning a circle of deadly electricity, throwing a lightning bolt as a projectile, and freezing enemies with Medusa's gaze. These are just genius and very fun to use throughout, which really helps the combat to remain enjoyable throughout nearly all of the game, despite it being somewhat mindless in some regards. Additionally, you can upgrade your weapons and all of these abilities, which adds a sense of discovery to them, giving you extra skills that you can use in relation to them, some of which are true lightsabers like the spin attack for the circle of electricity. These are even infused with some of the puzzles too. Most puzzles are somewhat simple but just made fun by requiring precise platforming, timing, or thinking outside of the box, while others are complete garbage like the ones where you literally just move boxes from one place to another very slowly. However, the best puzzle without a doubt is where you need to freeze an enemy with the Medusa gaze while they're on top of a switch, weighing it down and opening the door. It's awesome. The combat does have a lot of things going for it, but it's weighed down by some very specific things, just like the switch I just mentioned. First off, the blocking and dodging can feel unfair at points since you aren't really rewarded that well for timing your block properly, meaning it feels as if you can sometimes just hold in L1 for multiple seconds and be fine, whereas other enemies strike so quickly that it's hard to even react, especially with the lack of proper indication through attack animations. And speaking of unfair and finicky, the damn QuickTime events are the bane of my existence. Sure, these are very, very common in games even today, but God of War 2005 has some of the most annoying and frankly bratty ones I've ever suffered from. You might be wondering why I just said bratty. Well, it's probably because these are unreasonable, spoiled little idiots in QTE form. Ones which punish you for not responding within what feels like less than a second to certain prompts. It got to the point where I never even did these and just kept hitting the enemy. It takes about just as long and you don't fail and lose health as a result. I don't know why they made these as annoying and prevalent as they did, but it sucks, especially with this accursed boss fight. The first boss fight against the Hydra is absolutely awesome. It requires some clever puzzle solving and takes place in an incredible set piece, then ending with bombastic spectacle and a satisfying death for the opponent. The final boss too is, well, we'll get to that, but the middle boss in the temple is a pretty huge letdown. The attacks it has are confusing and somewhat hard to avoid, which is also a problem I have with Ares, and you have to get a bunch of QTEs twisting the stick around perfectly to defeat him, which gets super annoying. The game forces you to use QTEs for a lot of stuff, such as attacking an awesome looking bull monster, shoving your blades into an enemy's mouth, or...
Whoa, what are you doing, Kratos? I think that's a crime, man. He's dead. Yeah, you could say that again. Kratos definitely looks like he got some head alright.
Yikes. This game is a bit suspicious. Although at the very least this makes sense. I mean, Kratos was from ancient Greece after all.
Yeah, one of the famous trademarks of this game is that there's a minigame in which you, watch a vase fall over. But wait a minute. The prompt is still there after you do it. Does that mean... Oh my god, Kratos. No wonder your skin is that particular shade of white.
At the very least, though, this boss and the one against Ares are very cool looking, and the enemy design across the board is top notch, even if certain enemies are annoying as hell to fight. But no enemy is more annoying than the god of war himself, Ares. The first phase is not too bad. If you use all of your abilities, it's quite satisfying and challenging, even if it's not that unique compared to other fights throughout the game. The second phase is a bit overwhelming, but really cool and unique, having you fight against a ton of Kratos clones who are trying to kill Kratos' family. It's a really cool idea that connects to the story of the game, and looks awesome too. But then the third phase is, frankly, garbage. It's a super cool setup once more, with Kratos using a giant sword that used to be a bridge and Ares growing these creepy spider limbs, but the actual fight is very frustrating with how Ares' attacks are impossible to dodge at points, specifically this little poof of fire and then the ensuing heavy hitter. It drains your health and also gives him health due to the tug-of-war style health bar of this part, which is also an interesting idea, but it's never explained why it is there, and so it's kind of unnecessary feeling. But eventually you beat him and take your place as the god of war, which is a very satisfying and iconic ending. This ending caps off what is, to be honest, a really good story, too. It follows Kratos' guilt over killing his family in a fit of rage and his quest for retribution against Ares. It's very compelling and is done justice by the gradual reveal of what exactly he did, as we're only told he's guilty about something at the start, and the actual reveal is very impactful and works well. There isn't a ton to it by modern standards, but for 2005, this is a phenomenal story with an incredible complex leading character and good themes about guilt and greed, specifically showing that a lust for power can destroy everything, which is very accurate and poignant, especially from a war-oriented historical perspective. So yeah, the original God of War may not be perfect or anything, but it's got a lot going for it. The combat is fun for most of the game, even if some fine-tuning would have made it truly great. The pacing is phenomenal for parts of the game, and even if the ending gets frustrating, the difficulty is much more well-balanced than lots of other games from the time. The scale, the spectacle, and visual prowess of everything is truly astonishing, and the story is incredibly effective. Just like its main character, this game is flawed in many ways, but has become an enduring force in gaming and is undoubtedly important. Somewhere past Kratos' murderous past, there's a good man, and somewhere past this game's handful of annoying fights, puzzles, and time-induced flaws, there's a truly good game. 3.5 out of 5.
Very good, Walt. You've now completed the first game in this series, but that's just the beginning.
Oh well, I don't really see that as a punishment whatsoever. I mean, this first game was pretty good, so I'm sure the next entries will just get even better, and that means I'm more excited than anything else.
That's great to hear. You know, I've kept hold of this artifact for a very long time, and many have tried to earn it. I often hear from the warriors who attempt these trials that God of War 2 is actually their favorite.
Yeah, I mean, IGN gave it a good score, so that means it must be good. Right? 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 Right?
Greetings, my children. I am the god of controllers.
Wow! A god!
What brings you here today, Your Holiness?
I have decided something. I have made a radical choice that will alter the reality of these games by decree of godly commandment.
Wow! Does this mean that the forced QTEs and button mashing segments will be removed for the next games in the series?
No, I have decided on something far more useful. You now have to press R1 instead of R2 for some stuff.
What? Why did you even bother making that change?
Oh no! The other gods in Olympus are calling me. I must go. Good luck on your quest, brave warrior. He's gonna die as soon as he gets to the trap I've devised, and he doesn't even realize.
What the hell is Olympus? Oh, it's a frat house. That's where these gods are coming from. You have got to be kidding me.
After the first God of War game was more successful than I bet anyone truly anticipated, a sequel was quickly called into order and released in 2007 on the PS. The PS2? Yeah, even though the PS3 had already been out for a few months, the second God of War game was released on the previous generation. I mean, it makes sense. It had a much bigger install base and probably started development too early to be fully dedicated to being on the PS3. I mean, it's not like the God of War devs would ever release a smaller scale game in the series on last-gen hardware when it very clearly could have and should have been released on a brand new PlayStation console at the time, especially due to its short length. That would just be crazy of them. But how does God of War 2 stack up as a game? Well, for a PS2 release, it looks absolutely stunning. This is the best looking PS2 game I've ever played without a smidgen of competition. Everything looks absolutely gorgeous and so many of the intricate levels are perfect for immersing you in this fantastical world of Greek mythology. It feels like much more cohesive of a world as a result, which just makes it more fun to play too. The gameplay looks seriously incredible. I was constantly amazed by what they were able to pull off in 2007, and you know what? I'm just gonna say it. This honestly might look better than the big PS3, Xbox 360, or Wii games of that year in my opinion. Sure, Uncharted 1 and Ratchet & Clank Tools of Destruction both had fancy shiny HD graphics, but for style and vision, God of War 2 is an absolute masterpiece visually. And that's when you're actually playing the game. We also have quite a few cinematic CGI cutscenes sprinkled in there too, and these are unbelievable. These are legitimately jaw-dropping with their spectacle, beautiful color palette, and awesome fantasy imagery. The game's a looker throughout, and this helps the combat too actually. It's now more clear where you are, where enemies are, when attacks land, and just what the hell is going on, mainly because backgrounds and enemies don't blend in that much anymore. The first game kind of got repetitive and frustrating around halfway through, but this one doesn't do that at all. I didn't find myself bored once through the entire experience, mostly due to the absolute crap ton of new stuff they've added here. Like seriously, the first game looks like a demo of this one in comparison. The length isn't that much more since this game took me just over 8 hours, whereas the first one took a bit over 6, but it's about quality over quantity here. First of all, combat has been tweaked to a great degree, with dodging and blocking being far more instantaneous and reliable, which prevents frustrating losses of health from being so common. It feels a lot more dictated by the player's proper timing and skill, rather than like a crapshoot if an attack hits you or not. This makes things flow so well too, since you can attack the enemies far more quickly and with a much better sense of motion without worrying about suddenly getting hit and losing your whole combo. These changes are made even greater with the introduction of the Golden Fleece, which allows you to retaliate after blocking an attack with great timing, something that the last game was sorely missing. This is great for combat, allowing you to feel like timing is more important and rewarding, but it's also used very creatively for puzzles and boss fights, which I simply adore. Other minor things have been tweaked too. For example, you can now slide down walls quickly, jump up ladders, and swing yourself across ropes, which are all so much faster than the mind-boggling slog that was present in the last game's lame platforming. It's impossible to go back to that after experiencing this. It's that good. As a result of all these changes, the game is a very refined and fun experience through and through, which alone is the mark of a good game, but it's, as I said, the new stuff added that makes this game a good sequel as well. First, we have the ability to slow down time in certain areas for specific puzzles. It's not as in-depth as the time manipulation mechanics of other games or anything, but it's still very fun and used creatively near the end of the game. There are also now 2 different secondary weapons, a hammer and a spear. Now I think the hammer kinda sucks since it's clunky and you can't dodge it all while using it, making it kinda useless for most of the fights in the game. However, The spear is truly incredible. It flows so well, it's so satisfying to use, and it honestly feels like a clear precursor to Draupnir from God of War Ragnarok, which is also a stellar weapon. The new magic spells are also pretty cool too, with a more upgraded version of the Medusa Stare that can fire out quicker blasts of the gaze to freeze enemies faster, the ability to set up multiple balls of electricity that, as you upgrade them, link together and explode when disappearing, which allows for massive combos, a powerful stomp helpful for clearing out lots of enemies at once, and a bow that's used quite well for projectile combat and puzzles early in the game. And this is without even getting into the Icarus wings, which allow you to glide after jumping, and the ability to grapple onto things with the Blades of Chaos, both of which add so much mobility compared to the last game, which didn't really have mobility at all. I wish they had used these wings for a few more platforming segments, since it reminds me a lot of the old Spyro games and how you need to use gliding strategically, but when they do let you use it, it's really cool and adds a lot to the game's feeling of adventure. We also have these new levels where you ride on a Pegasus that change up the formula quite a bit, and though it's a bit weird how they just flat out disappear after around 2 hours into the game, they're really fun and visually interesting nevertheless. All of these additions are really welcome, especially due to how they come up in such quick succession, meaning the game is constantly offering a new and exciting change, constantly giving you new things to explore, constantly changing how you view your surroundings, especially with regard to the amazing puzzles. Even the more frustrating puzzles in this game have clear methods to them that make you feel like it was your fault, not the game's, for dying. There is no equivalent to the idiotic spy room with the stone block. Instead, there are some genius puzzles such as the room with the Phoenix statue, which will be the example I'll use to illustrate how good this game's puzzles are. So essentially you have to climb up onto the ceiling, destroy these icicles to reveal beams of light below, then destroy one of the walls frozen in ice to reveal a mirror statue, which you then move around until finding a beam of light that, in combination with the mirror, beams the light down into the chamber with the frozen statue. Then, you turn the emblems around the statue until the reflective one is in just the right spot, which reflects the light and melts the ice around the statue. Absolutely incredible. And this continues over to many of the boss fights too. Some of these are short and basic like Theseus or Icarus, but then you have some absolutely incredible fights too, such as the one against Perseus, where you have to keep track of the splashes he makes in the water to find him due to his invisibility. There's also the Kraken, where you really aren't told what to do at all, but you'll find it out by a clever recalling of the knowledge you gained throughout the game. You'll see that hitting the tentacles of the Kraken makes it lift them up, revealing a button, and since you've previously placed corpses on buttons to keep them down, that logically follows. This opens up a vent, which you also used before with the wings to fly, and then in the air you'll notice a scar in the Kraken's head, which is where you need to attack. It's very clever and subtle. The Colossus of Rhodes, where you need to climb into its insides and gradually destroy it, the Gorgon, whose gaze needs to be reflected back onto her to deal damage, or the disgusting Glob, who I can't show because it has like 900 nipples, where you need to solve puzzles to position spikes over its hands, and then let them down when the hands are in the right spot. These are all great highlights as well. But the clear highlight is easily the Sisters of Fate, where you already start off with a tense but in-depth battle against one of them, leading into an awesome subversive twist where you have to prevent them from destroying or altering your past and making you the one who lost the fight at the end of the first game, and culminating in an awesome final phase against both at once where you have to figure out how to trap one of them in the mirror and shatter it while time is slowed down. This is clearly a very well thought out battle, and it's truly unforgettable. It's definitely my favorite boss fight out of these classic God of War games so far, and I'd say it's my third favorite overall, only behind Nidhogg and Gna from Ragnarok. In addition to the gameplay being an absolute blast that's constantly exciting, complex, and perfectly balanced, the story is pretty compelling too. Yes, it's kind of the same story of an angry white man going after gods who have wronged him, but it's the places it brings you to, and mainly the ending, that are so fantastic. You start off in Rhodes fighting against the Colossus, which is great for an opening area and quite stunning visually, then going to this icy cavern and fighting against an ice titan, as well as killing Prometheus, whose torment does a great job of building up Zeus as a villain, especially since this happens right after he kills Kratos, and Kratos is brought back by the Titans. After this, most of the game is spent on this island leading to the place where the Sisters of Fate live, but it's much more full of variety and awesome areas than the Temple of Pandora from the last game ever was. You go through a swamp, fighting a creepy zombified version of your old human opponent, fight against the Gorgon Queen after going through her temple, fight Perseus and Icarus, go through the stunning set piece that is the Titan Atlas, which is basically the fire level of the game, and finally fight through many challenges to get to the Sisters. This includes setting a phoenix free and riding it to their temple. That's the literal definition of badass. And it all culminates at the end quite brilliantly with the reveal that Zeus destroyed Sparta in Kratos' absence, serving as an effective motivation to go after him. The final fight against Zeus may have pretty annoying QTEs at the end, like, Jesus, that thing sucks. I guess now that's what the God of Controllers was snickering about. It may have that going against it, and it may not be as good as the fight against the Sisters of Fate, but it's climactic and satisfying as hell, and the ending hinting at a full-on war between the Titans and Olympians is easily one of the best cliffhanger endings in gaming history. Like, damn, this is how you do a game about gods and wars. God of War 2 is, without any doubt in my mind, one of the finest sequels in the pantheon of gaming. This is the game that truly proves the worth of God of War as the juggernaut franchise that it is today, and it's also one of the best PS2 games of all time. I could be a picky little nerd and say that because of these awkward and kind of hilarious audio glitches that I kept experiencing, I will only give it a 4.5, but this game is so damn good that I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say that that only happens in the PS3 remaster, making it an astounding 5 out of 5. Truly a must-play.
Oh Lord, please make the rest of the games in this series just as good as God of War 2. In fact, please make all games just as good as this one.
Did someone say Lord? I can help you, my child. I am the god of portability, and I shall grant your wish.
That seems ironic. But hey, you can make every game just as good as God of War 2?
Oh, that was your wish. I thought it was to have a God of War game that was portable with a weird story that's only 3 hours long.
Absolutely not.
Uh-oh. Well, I kind of already did that. Here you go.
What the hell? This isn't a game. This is just some piece of paper.
No, my child. It's a download code.
Man, I'm trying to live an antiquated lifestyle. I don't know how to use this thing.
Not my problem. What do I look like? The god of explaining tech?
No thanks. He's creepy.
Well, sorry, but, I can't help you anymore. Until we meet again, Mr. KGB.
What the hell am I doing with my life?
The first spin-off and the first portable entry in the franchise, God of War Chains of Olympus, was released in 2008, around a year after the previous title. What an astonishingly quick turnaround that is. Well, the reason for that is that the game was primarily developed by Ready at Dawn, who also made Daxter, which was just like this game insofar as it was a PSP spin-off of a beloved PS2 franchise. And later, they made The Order 1886, which exists. The game follows a decent enough side story, which takes place before either of the mainline entries, instead being another tale of Kratos' servitude to the gods. This time he must save the god of the sun, Helios, from being captured, which has sent many other gods into a deep slumber. It starts out on the shores of Attica with you fighting a basilisk, which has a pretty awesome design but underwhelming boss battle, and Persian soldiers. That's right, the first enemies from another pantheon appeared in not the 2018 game, but in this one. I think it's really cool how you also fight a Persian general and gain a really unique fire-themed magic ability from him. Sure, this fight is just as basic as the Basilisk one right after it, but it's conceptually a lot cooler in my view, mainly just because it's something radically new and different. Unfortunately, there are no other Persian enemies in the entire rest of the game, so it feels kind of like a waste. Then, yet another awesome idea is wasted as we explore the cliffs of Marathon and have to solve puzzles to dispel of Morpheus's dark clouds. Now, I know what we're all thinking. Why is Morbius in a God of War game?
Well, Jared Leto is actually a cult leader, meaning that to some people out there, he actually is a god. So I guess it does make sense.
These clouds look awesome, but after this chapter, they're barely used ever again. Then we spend a lot of time in the Temple of Helios, which is fine enough. They're decent enemies. We unlock a new projectile magic ability, and the puzzle at the end, though nowhere near as good as most of the ones from the last two games, is one of the best in this game. We also get the Sun Shield, which is by far the best thing in the whole game. It allows for parrying that is sometimes even better than the parrying offered by the Golden Fleece in God of War 2, and it makes combat super fun and flowing. The combat isn't as good as God of War 2 because the magic spells are clunkier and it just overall isn't as smooth, but I'd argue that it's better than the combat in the first game, and that's really impressive. Then we go to Hades, which looks incredible and is a nice change of pace from the stone temple aesthetic of the majority of the game, but then we are quickly sent back down to the depths of Tartarus, which are nowhere near as interesting. Here we do unlock a second weapon, the Gauntlet of Zeus, which is very weighty and satisfying to use, but otherwise it's not that great. But the puzzles in this game are really what hurt it in my view, as well as the exploration. The combat is very fun and feels great for a sort of God of War 1.5, but the exploration is super basic, with 90% of chests holding valuables out in the wide open, and puzzles being extremely basic and easy. We don't get anything like the amazing Phoenix puzzle from God of War 2, although to be fair, we also get nothing as bad as the spiked block puzzle from the first game. I can understand limiting exploration due to technical limitations, especially because the game looks, sounds, controls, and feels fantastic in nearly every way for a 2008 PSP game, but puzzles are where I draw the line. Hell, there are Zelda games on the Game Boy and Game Boy Color that have incredible puzzles. So for this game to really only excel at visuals and combat, it ends up getting repetitive. At the very least, the game only took me the length of Oppenheimer to beat, while also collecting every collectible, upgrading everything to the fullest, and even having 70,000 red orbs to spare by the time I was done, so it's not that bad, but I think more variety and enjoyability is necessary regardless. There's an actually pretty cool sequence where we find the Titan Atlas and then go back up to Hades to fight this creepy, shriveling monster with an awesome design. And his boss fight is by far the best one in the game, mainly due to how unsettling he is and how great the setting of a boat atop a river of blood works for this part. We gain one more magic ability that's kinda useless this far into the game, fight through way too many enemies, and then are faced with a finale where Kratos is forced to abandon his daughter in order to save the world. It's the only truly compelling part of the story, and while it is good, don't get me wrong, it's kinda just a retread of the guilt he felt throughout the first game. I know I might sound cruel, because I'm basically saying, oh yeah, you killed your wife and daughter, just get over it, dude, but I'm kind of talking about how it feels in the context of the story. And this isn't helped by the final boss, Persephone, who is quite lame, even compared just to the previous fight, but at least it's a decent enough ending to a decent enough game. I didn't really feel anything more than a slight nod and a relaxed thumbs up toward this game by the time it was finished, though. It's got impressive visuals and fun combat and doesn't ever get that boring or frustrating, but it's really not that great by any means. The story is forgettable as hell, every aspect of gameplay other than combat is basic and uninspired, and you could honestly skip over this one entirely and not miss out on much whatsoever. Do I recommend it? Not really, but I don't not recommend it. If you want to play it, go ahead. I'm sure you'll find it to be fine enough, just as I did. But even though there's nothing offensively wrong with it, there's not much at all that it truly gets right, either. It's decent. It's okay. It's fine. It's the definition of a 3 out of 5.
I'm really not feeling that impressed by the series right now. What's the next one? Please let it be a continuation of that awesome cliffhanger from before.
I think you're in luck, because it will be none other than God of War 3, released for the fancy, modern PlayStation 3.
Oh man, that's awesome! I can't wait. Alright mate, where did you go? I want to play some damn whiff-waff with ya. God, not him. Listen, man, I told you, I'm doing something right now.
This is that roommate of yours, huh?
Yes. Huh? Hey, mate, what's you say here, then? Hey, dude, you should not be messing with that. Why not, mate? Methinks it could be great for use in the best nation in the world.
I think I speak for everyone when I say that is not England. Drop the axe now.
I thought it was called a lynx, though. Oh well. I think I'm going to keep it for now, and I can compensate you with a fair deal by, Halloween or so? You know, with 2028. But for now, I think I'm really going to enjoy using this thing. I'm not joking, Barishi. Give me the axe now. Well, I can use it to cut taxes for the people who are suffering the most in my nation.
Wait, really?
Yeah, for all those poor millionaires. That's it. I've had enough of you. But although you two remain in this apartment, mate. Why?
Oh my god, it's true. You're him. What? What do you mean? You are the chosen one. I should have known earlier. You are the one destined to serve the gods, and to do so you must first finish this mission. You must first complete all of the God of War games.
All right. So if I beat these, I get the axe?
No. When you finish these games and begin your servitude to the gods, you will have the axe.
Uh-huh.
Welcome to the first day of the rest of your life, Walter.
Thank you? I'll do my best.
I have finally found him.